right. And we are up high. We're back. It's been a few weeks, I guess. The last time you heard us, I was mainly complaining about the Toronto Maple Leafs, but that's all done now. I have come to peace with my frustrations. Okay, I haven't, but we're still here. We're all good. Welcome to the Sportculation Podcast. My name is Yusuf Rashid. I am flanked, as usual, by Anton Wong.
Hello.
Who is sitting sternly, staring into my eyes.
But you can't see that probably because you guys are just listening to this.
Yep. And Parse, who has finally recovered from wisdom teeth surgery.
Yeah, hello. Can speak again.
So, how do I put this? It's been a very interesting last week when it comes to sports. Of course, as we know, the NBA and the NHL are carrying on with their playoff tournaments, but there was a bit of I don't want to say roadblock, but I want to say there was a very smart stoppage for a couple of days, mainly in the NBA, in regards to the shooting of Jacob Blake just last week. And of course, with the Black Lives Matter movement going strong in the NBA, teams, mainly the Milwaukee Bucks, decided to boycott their games for the time being. Games, of course, have resumed today. But we're not here to talk. We're here to talk about that, sort of, how that's been going well. The other thing we have to talk about is the NHL and their response to what's been going on with the boycotting from other leagues, how the MLB even has players that, refuse to play due to what's been going on. And while the NHL, some players are standing up for it. Now you see the Western Conference teams coming together. There was that photo they put out a few days ago. The NHL as an organization hasn't been great in response to this, nor have they been great in response to a lot of social matters over the last few years. And long ago when we started this podcast, we actually did an episode about this, about hockey culture and how the global market of hockey just isn't that big, and how they don't really see things outside of a box. So I guess the only way we can lead this off right now is, number one, good for the NBA, right? Yes.
Is that a question?
Yes, it is a question.
Yes.
There you go. Parse is always
I don't know. See, what's remarkable about the whole situation is that how much power these players actually have. It's crazy. I mean, there was a little bit of a history lesson from Bill Russell about how he and the Boston Celtics had at one point decided to boycott their games. But that was during the regular season, different time. We had such a great leader in Martin Luther King. It was a very big, I would want to say bigger movement than what it is today. But just the fact that these young players who are younger than us too, Anton, they're 23, 24 years of age, some of them, and they're being vocal, just to name Jaylen Brown as an example. And that they're able to come up with this idea and to actually boycott games, regardless of what the owners, even if the owners had a say in it, the fact that they were able to do this without warning, it's truly remarkable that they're able to do something like that. So it's kind of an eye opener to how much power players actually have, which is where I want to bring it to the NHL, because the NBA did this in spite of the news that a black man was shot 7 times in the back unnecessarily. Given the situation, and we still don't know all the facts as to what occurred. So I don't want anybody to feel as if they have different sides of the spectrum on this. I'm not picking sides on this at all. There's different sides of the spectrum, but what we can say is that, he was shot in the back 7 times, and everybody seems to feel that was kind of unnecessary. So in so saying that, with the response of the NBA and what they did, in spite of the event and what the MLB did, it's a testament to how much power players have, and it's a good move, as the question asks.
It is a very good move. And I think, the response that the NBA has made in regards to all of this is, I think, not only strengthening the the maturity of the league itself when it comes to social matters. Excuse me. But in a way, with players openly speaking out about these things, we're starting to see a more human side to these athletes because, for a lot of people, like people we know, people that aren't, heavily into sports, they see these athletes as just guys that shoot a ball or hit a puck and they make a ton of money. And a lot of people I know say, well, these guys aren't human. They just make money and they do all these athletic things. It's like, no, they're still people. I think one of the smartest things I've seen so far is the fact that LeBron James has kept his social media open throughout these whole playoffs. And I'm glad that we have someone, like LeBron who is essentially not, I don't want to say he's trying to, but being a figurehead in how things are going and leading the way for being a part of this movement in the NBA, which I think the NHL is severely lacking. So follow up to that would be what can the NHL do? There are reporters out there that are asking these like the NHL players in post game conferences, can you please just stop with the social justice stuff? Can you leave that alone and focus on the hockey? And I think now more than any time so far in this psychotic year of 2020, I think the NHL players really need to put a focus on what's going on. Will they? Will we see a change?
Is that your question?
Yeah.
You seem to ask just like
it's vague today. It's vague today. It's vague today.
Is there like more prediction?
Yeah. Do you?
Okay, but okay. So you want me to just share thoughts?
Yeah. On it, like right. It's just a share thoughts kind of thing, as of right now.
Okay.
Well,
with regards to the NHL, I think that I do kind of agree with what a lot of the players had said. Guys like Nate McKinnon, and players of color like Van Kane. They,
Ryan Reeves of Vegas as well has been a big part of that.
Yeah, so like I echo them in saying that NHL has been kind of late to the game, late to sort of get on being more outspoken, and sort of had to, they were kind of late following. They were behind MLB, they were behind NBA, they were behind the WNBA in taking action to, whether it was boycott or whatever it was, whatever action that they wanted to take. It's obvious that they had sort of, they weren't sure what to do and they didn't act soon enough. Now, the idea is like, okay, so once the games were boycotted, you can't, like, do you want to do that forever? Do you want to just cancel the season? And I don't know. I think in terms of having the most amount of impact, people watch you. People like you show up in Google Trends when the season is on. Like, people will look at you when you have a stage, when you have a spotlight, and that is when the season is going. So I think kind of initially, I think LeBron James and lots of other NBA stars were thinking, and lots of other NBA players were thinking, like, should we maybe just cancel the rest of the playoff season, just cancel the season, or do we keep going? Because at the end of it, what they had sort of decided was, okay, let's continue, but let's try to bring more of the focus onto these issues. And I think that's something that NHL kind of needs to put more action and more concrete steps. So when there's opportunities for you to hire people of color in your senior positions, in the league, in front office. I think you need to take those opportunities to do that. Just because, if I think I read some article that says, like, if you have a power play going on, you're not going to put guys on the ice who are not used to having to deal with the pressures of being in a power play. So what you do is you find people who are experienced. And so I think that's what they need to do, is find people who would be able to understand these issues more, and put them into positions in, like, executive boards or other things of that sort. So those are my thoughts.
Parse?
I mean, they were late to the puck drop. And I know how that sounds. I know there's going to be people reading into that because, again, it's a black puck. We're not trying to read into the similarity. I'm just saying they were late to the puck drop, and I want to say that I want to say that this is not at all a big surprise. I think to a lot of hockey people, a lot of hockey fans, it's not a big surprise, right? If you watch hockey, it's one of the most when you're in a playoff situation, it's one of the most anxious games you ever get to watch.
It's tense. It's nothing but tension.
Yeah. So the entire day, if your team is still in there, you're kind of thinking, like, I really want to. I don't want to miss a single minute, because the hit, the puck being in the middle and a scramble could mean the whole play. So but it's I don't want to say it's quite sad. I think what people are going to want to hear from us is that we are noticing, and this is probably the biggest thing, that's like, we're noticing the racial discrimination from this. Actually, we have to call it what it is. The NHL is predominantly white owners, and these white owners went ahead and ran the games without even contemplating on what the other leagues would be doing. And the NHL, who took the opportunity to follow the NBA, create a bubble similar to what they did in Orlando. They followed everything the NBA did. I don't know, like, it was pretty well circulated. I think the NBA and the NHL were in complete unison in terms of strategy to keep the league and keep the season going, versus the MLB, who had a whole bunch of tension and question. And even up to this point, some teams are not even running because of COVID issues. But the NHL and the NBA, they were working in unison to make sure this thing happened. Like, nobody on that side of the spectrum, on those business ties, wanted any money to be lost because of COVID. And you're seeing just how important the money is to them, how important the games are to them, that an event like this can happen and they don't even hesitate to run the Tampa Bay Boston game. They don't hesitate to tell you there's another game the next day. It's only after they see the NBA reacting, oh, we made a mistake. Oh, no, we need to figure this out, guys. Oh, my God. Cancel.
Everything's in danger. Everything's on fire. Run.
Yeah, you guys know that SpongeBob episode where they're just tossing everything into the fire, and it's like the brain snap. It literally, that's what the NHL did in those span of 2 days. They couldn't even believe it. The fact that they were getting called out by Evander Kane. Other people, other minorities even watched it on Twitter, calling them out, saying, "How are you guys still running the league?"
Oh yeah, yeah. Twitter was on fire that night.
I gotta be vocal, right? Because I was on my messenger, right, and I said, "Guys, if you're watching any sports tonight, you do not get it. You do not get it." And I'm a black person. I was traumatized by the whole situation, because I too understand, and I live in this world, and I have this stigmatism, this idea, and it's a very bad idea, that the police are not my friends, that the police and police brutality is very, very serious and can happen at any day, and that I am genuinely scared of police officers because of the stigmatizations that happen in the nations. So it's really tough to see and tough to have a positive attitude in this world. And I wish the NHL wasn't so systematically like this. I wish that, like Anton's point, they had black owners, but sadly, we just saw, I think for the first time, the biggest shown light about how the white owners, they only care about the puck being dropped and the 2.5 hours or 3 hours of game time with the commercials that they make off. They didn't think about a black man at this time.
I think something interesting to note there is you got, like, not just from the owner's perspective, but you get like in the case rather of the NBA, the Bucks legitimately basically held up the NBA Board of Governors and Adam Silver and said, "We're boycotting our games. You're not stopping us." But that's, the whole team was in agreement of that.
That's an insane amount of power.
Which is a very ridiculous amount of power, yes.
Like, you would never think in a million years that players have that type of power in this day and age, but they do.
Right. Yeah.
Vander Kane does.
Yeah, but the problem is if Vander Kane's only one person.
Well, I think there's another thing. There's another aspect to it where it's you don't know if you don't have a certain perspective, you don't know what to look for, right? And so, like if if let's say we're just like shopping, I'm shopping for clothes or something, and I don't know what's good. I don't know what to look for. I don't have that experience. I'm not that kind of person. But someone who does have experience does know what to look for. They do know what to look out for. They have that thought in mind. Like I remember seeing this post of a screenshot in New York. It was a screenshot of a New York map of like Uber, like all the different options for Uber. There's like Uber Lyft, Uber or Uber Pool, Uber XL, Uber, all of those options. And then one of them was Walking Buddy. And then the comments on that screenshot was like, "Oh, that's such a weird, crazy idea. That's such a weird idea." And then the other half of those comments were saying, "That's actually a really smart idea for if you are scared to walk alone at night." And I noticed that the majority of those comments were women, and the majority of the other comments saying like, "I don't. This is such a weird idea. Why would you do that?" I couldn't always tell, but like they generally appear to be men. And so if you don't know what you're looking for, then you don't necessarily see it. And so that's why I think it's a good idea to have more people of color involved in positions of power to provide that blind spot that you might not have, because if you don't know what to look for, you don't see it, you don't act upon that. And so I'm not trying to necessarily put fault on anyone, but I think people gotta look out more, and if they can't, then maybe have some people who do have that perspective to help them out in looking out more.
Yeah, they got to get some insight from somewhere.
I think that's something that I think would definitely be a big help to this. You guys?
Yeah. It would be. I think we have there has to be some insight from somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100% with that.
I mean, you look at the NHL, and they have.
Go ahead, Yusuf.
That was weird. That was very weird. I don't know what happened there. I think my internet's. Anyways, yeah. So, the NHL has their newly established Hockey Diversity Alliance, which is mainly players of African American heritage involved. Ryan Reeves of the Vegas Golden Knights, Matt Dumba of the Minnesota Wild, Evander Kane, Akim Aliu, to name a few. I don't think PK Subban is a part of that, but I could be wrong. But you have an alliance like that leading the way for minorities in hockey. We have a Hockey Night in Canada Punjabi edition, like a Hockey Night in Canada in a completely different language, run by people that aren't white. It's we're getting there, but I feel like there still needs to be a lot more insight and what's the word? Insight and just like more hints, I guess, more or less given to the NHL. Like, hey, you're kind of seeing the point, but you're not still seeing the point. Here's a little more.
Yeah.
I agree with Anton. Just like in the fact that we're not necessarily saying that it's NHL's fault what happened. We have to take into perspective that this is a new waters for them. You flip the roles, right? New waters for us, right? So in that sense, you do have to have some sympathy towards them for that. So I agree with that aspect. Not to blame fingers at anybody if people feel on edge. The NHL does a tremendous job in the community, giving a chance for people to learn about hockey and to be a part of hockey. And then you have various organizations like Enterprise and Tim Hortons who are active sponsors who try their best to get the young people into hockey with their programs. So it's not entirely the NHL's fault that they're not up to date on this stuff. But when Anton said they need to hire more diversity, they need to have more diversity in there.
Yeah. Well, I think some of the responsibility and the quote unquote fault does lie with them because people have been saying in the public like, hey, you should do something. So I think some of the fault does lie with them. But yeah, I think they ought to take that responsibility upon themselves to be more proactive. And like I read in another article yesterday that it was by a hockey fan who is black. He's I think he's like works as like a computer tech guy, just like your average avid hockey fan who didn't grow up playing hockey. He grew up playing I think it was one of the Nintendo systems or something, or PlayStation, the NHL game, the NHL video game, and that's how he got involved in becoming a hockey fan. And you notice that like if NHL doesn't do anything to be proactive, not just with these social issues, but also just finding ways to expand themselves and broaden their reach. They can't just keep doing the same thing that they were doing all this time because it's already a very financially restrictive sport. And so kids lower on the socioeconomic ladder, which are often, kids that are Black, Indigenous, and people of color, they're not going to necessarily be able to play those games. Of course, you're going to have like, Timbits hockey that might be able to help a little bit. But you got to do something because otherwise you're going to lose the next generation of kids to whatever the next sport is, like probably soccer, because that's a very fast growing sport in
Ultimate
America.
Frisbee.
Yeah, ultimate Frisbee, rugby, like any of these sports, like hockey has been known to have like severe
Darts.
Hockey's been known to have like like long-term effects on the human brain. So a lot of the parents are pulling these kids out of hockey and saying like, oh, maybe play another sport. And maybe kids are just like really into esports. They might do that instead. Like if you don't innovate, if you don't try something to keep up, and if you don't are not like understanding of these issues, then I think you're going to be left by the wayside.
Yeah, pretty much. Like it's one of those things where there's an entire horizon of opportunities that the NHL can get on that you see the NBA doing mainly, MLB maybe not so much, but I feel like because hockey is still so, I guess like white European dominated, some people see it that way and some people don't see that horizon because it's still like hockey is big, of course, in the European market. It's big in here, obviously, in Canada and parts of the U.S. They're trying everywhere else, but there's a lot of other things other than just reaching out with the sport itself to get people in on it, like maintaining a positive influence to younger, to just fans or young hockey players that want to potentially play this sport. I have a question written down here in my notes, and all it says is the NHL out of touch with social movements? I think we've been pretty good. I think we've been answering that fairly so far. But I look at this question again. It's like I don't know if they're out of touch with social movements more than they're just out of touch with a lot of things. And the whole culture of hockey, I think it's just like from the older generation at least, because they still have such a big hand in what hockey is today. You know, you look at guys like Don Cherry, who was a big gatekeeper. And Don Cherry, look, call him what you will. I know people still think Don Cherry is old and racist, but at the end of the day, Don's old. He's the gatekeeper of what hockey culture is, and, you know, essentially like what the sport of hockey has been for so many years, we know through Don Cherry.
Yeah.
Look now. Yeah. You look.
He's also like kind of a proponent of, or he wants to see fights as well in hockey.
Yeah, he's also a big, you know, I need fights back. And we keep saying, Don, this isn't the 70s anymore. People get hurt. But even recently, you know, NBC SN, NBC's sports network, or sport, whatever they call it, recently had to suspend analyst Mike Milbury, former general manager of the New York Islanders, Mike Milbury, for comments he had made during a game where he had said that it's a good thing that we don't have, or I'm paraphrasing here, but it's a good thing we don't have women here to distract the players. Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah. I'm gonna look up.
Pull up the direct quote. I think it's better if we have the direct quote.
I'm about to pull up the direct quote.
Because
I'm about to pull up again, paraphrasing, but I'm about to. Okay.
Let's get a little bit more precise.
Alrighty. From ESPN, reported by Emily Kaplan, the NHL has condemned what it has called insensitive and insulting comments that analyst Mike Milbury made about women during a broadcast last Thursday night. Where is the... Aha. Okay. So, between a conversation of Mike Milbury and Brian Boucher discussing the benefits of the playoff bubble during the Islander game against the Washington Capitals, Brian Boucher says, you know, if you think about it, this is quote, by the way, I am quoting this. If you think about it, it's a terrific environment with regard to if you enjoy playing and enjoy being with your teammates for long periods of time, it's a perfect place to be. This is a quote about the bubble. Mike Milbury's exact response, word for word, is not even any women here to disrupt your concentration.
Okay. I'm not really sure what to think of that. But
now bear in mind, Mike Milbury is the same guy who, after the first or second game of the bubble, took a photo of the CN Tower and said, "Boy, I love the Space Needle."
Okay.
Just saying.
Okay. Okay. I don't really have many other thoughts on that.
I don't want to have any thoughts on that. Just parse thoughts about that, and because that's just
no comment.
There we go. You know, there are still a lot of people that are definitely out of touch with things in hockey. I've noticed because you're not going to see a lot of that in the NBA, and even in the NBA now, you know, you see a lot of like pop culture references being made like everywhere. So in a sense, they're hip with the times. I say hip with the times like that's a thing people say.
You said pop culture references and hip with the times. You sound like you're 55 trying to connect.
I look 55. Anyways.
Okay.
Yeah, but regardless of that point, I think, you know, there's still a lot of big names that are working for the NHL or working along, like in partnership with the NHL, that are a little bit out of touch. And it's guys like these that the second they say something, a fire occurs, and it's just like, NHL, are you going to do something about it? Now, granted, the NHL directly didn't do anything about it. NBC had to. When Don Cherry had made his comments back in November of 2019, a simpler time when there was no coronavirus, NHL didn't get involved. Sportsnet did. In regards to what's going on right now, following the shooting of Jacob Blake, the NHL let their games play, and the players themselves had to decide, okay, we're not doing this. Like, we choose not to play, and, you know, statement had to be made at some point. I don't know if the NHL ever did release an actual statement. It probably did, but yeah, Is the NHL out of touch? I say it is. We've just been talking about this the entire time. They're out of touch.
Yeah, I think they can come back into touch, but
They can. No, they definitely can. It's that time to change, you know.
yeah, they got to move quick. Otherwise, some other next sport is going to come in. Some other next activity is going to come in and swoop up all the next generation of kids. Parse?
Yeah. What football?
Football?
What about football? Could you repeat what you just said, Parse?
Wiffle ball.
Wiffle ball. Wiffle ball. Yeah. Spike ball too, you know, playing spike
Quidditch.
ball.
Oh, yeah, spike ball. That's been like a big thing.
Spike ball's a big thing.
Yeah.
We can talk about that later.
We could talk about that later. I don't know if we could spend a whole episode on it. Yeah, that's been like a huge thing. But yeah, like the thing is with hockey. Oh, whoop. Yes, Parse? Did you have a thought?
No.
Okay. The thing is with hockey is it's a Canadian mainstay, right? Like it is our national sport. Is it the national sport or is that?
It is one of the national sports. The other national sport is lacrosse.
Okay, there we go. Just whoa, just making sure. Hi. Yeah, because hockey is still a national sport of this country, I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon, but the love for it, I think we could see a decline over the next 5-10 years. There's a chance. There's a chance. We're seeing that with baseball. Baseball's America's sport, but like baseball hasn't really been doing too hot either.
Yeah, there's a huge following in South America.
Yeah.
For baseball.
But not in the US.
Eye-boggling.
So it is kind of mud. Not really.
Take it how you will.
Take it how you will. Yeah. Final thoughts. I guess so. We're gonna wrap it up quick today. We're gonna make it easy. Final thoughts. Number one is because there have not been games over the last few days or the last couple days. I've been like, oh, I can finally take a break from watching hockey and basketball all day. Hooray! And today was game one of the Raptors and Boston Celtics series, and to no surprise,
You traitor.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You guys can't see, but Yusuf is wearing a Boston Celtics jersey right now.
Highly suspect.
And we are no longer his friends.
Oh, okay. I have.
Why don't you go marry Jason Tatum?
This is a Jason Tatum jersey.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Okay.
It's actually. Long story short, before we get to actual final thoughts, I've got my my Raptors jersey and my Celtics jersey hung up in my room to get ready for the series, and I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to wear my Raptors jersey like 4 games or like 5 games for when they win, and then they lost this game, and I'm like, well, time to put this one on. It's the only time I've ever worn this jersey.
You traitor!
I am not a traitor. No
one liked you. You jersey switcher. That's worse than a traitor. Jersey switcher.
Oh yeah, that is worse. Imagine. Actually, no. Anton's seen me wear like 3 different sports teams on my body at like one point in time. Actually, maybe more than once. But
yeah, but they were like different sports. I think.
That's true. So yeah. Anyways, final thoughts. NHL, do something, anything, please. I'm glad hockey's carrying on. I'm glad basketball's still carrying on. But the NBA players have made it clear that they are making a statement with what they are doing, with their actions on the court and off the court. The NHL players really haven't entirely done that, and it's hard. In a very white-dominated sport where, as of right now, in the playoffs, there's only like what? One or not a lot of African American players left. Like Ryan Reeves is the most notable, but that's because Vegas is like kicking Vancouver's ass right now. So
Yeah, I mean, I think they have been. Well, they definitely seem to be more vocal than the owners.
Yeah.
Of the teams about these issues, because I think it could just be like a younger person thing. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure.
Some millennial thing. No. Yeah. At the end of the day, like the owners need to speak up as well. And we're seeing that with not like with all the NBA owners, but Mark Cuban is one of them that's speaking up heavily about it. And for other teams, they have large representatives. Yes, Mark Cuban, the great Mark Cuban. Long live Mark Cuban of Shark Tank fame.
We're just going to take the Space Needle and we're going to poke the NHL and say, do something, like that meme with the stick. Just do something.
You're talking about the actual Space Needle or the CN Tower?
I think we'll leave it up to interpretation.
Okay, just making sure.
It could be the Seattle Space Needle. We really don't know.
They could build a new one.
Longer. Yeah, final thoughts is this is a wake up call for the NHL, and I think everybody kind of saw that in the slide. I don't think it really hurt the stock process of it, but this is 2020. Times are moving forward. Roll with the times or be lost in the times, like Don Cherry. Sorry, did I say that?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the realistic truth, right? You got to roll with it or get lost in it, and we're seeing that a lot now. And with the ongoing Black Lives Matter movement, we're definitely seeing that a lot more. And also, the U.S. elections coming up, that's going to be interesting. I'm not going to talk about it because this is not a podcast about politics.
Yeah, not direct.
Not direct. Go to Parse for that. He does that stuff. So final thoughts.
Don't come to me.
There's a massive issue that needs to be looked at. The NHL needs to take their time to look at it. And while they're doing all these great things like hiring other, people of color, whatnot, for, on teams on their networks, I feel like that's not enough. And they've got to sort of speed this process up fast. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, well, my thoughts were do something quick.
Exactly.
You're gonna lose the next generation.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
yep.
Yeah, that's good. I think we're good. This is a fairly short episode. This has been the Sportculation Podcast. This very hastily episode of the podcast. I have been Yusuf. That has been Anton. And Parse is looking around. What are you looking for?
I was looking to say, go Vegas.
Honestly, at this point, go Vegas.
Come on, guys. You're rooting against the other Canadian team.
I like Vancouver. But Vegas is scary. Vegas is so scary.
Yeah. They already have, what was it? They have, more, they get to avoid the next draft.
Yeah, they get to avoid. You know what? We will probably do a whole episode on Vegas because they're gonna win against Vancouver. Like I can feel it in my Yusuf senses.
They already have so many other opportunities. Okay, let's end the podcast.
We're cutting it here. We'll be back later. Bye.